Welcome to a live Deprogram with Keri Smith. I'm your host, Keri. Today is Monday, June 24th. I hope you had a great weekend and you're having a great summer. Welcome to all the new folks and to all the regulars I see in the chat. It's good to see you guys. It's good to be back. I have one announcement, book club. I forgot on Friday to tell you, book club. The next one is in July. It's July 18th. It's a Thursday. We are going to be discussing the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. And as I've mentioned before, it's a great book. He sort of laid out, it's like reading his diaries, essentially. And there's one part in particular that I've mentioned that's pretty interesting, where he was a man struggling with how to improve himself and how to identify his vices and replace them with virtues. And so he had his list of 13 virtues that he wanted to strengthen and build in himself. And he was very introspective and self-reflective and honest about his failings. He identified that pride is probably the worst of his vices, and probably for everyone or most people. And so I kind of joke that it was like Benjamin Franklin's 13 virtues is sort of like Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life, before Jordan Peterson's 12 rules for life. But it's great. I think you guys will like it. And if you haven't gotten a copy yet, you still have time to read this. We're not going to be talking about it until July 18th. So go get your copy. It was written by Benjamin Franklin. It is the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. And I hope to see you guys in the discussion. If you want a link to the book club discussion, email me at deprogrammedpod. That's deprogrammedpod @gmail.com. And just say book club in the subject, and that you want to be a part of the Ben Franklin one, and I'll get that to you. So I'm excited about that. Okay, let's see. So today I thought there's so much in the zeitgeist lately, it being Pride Month, Shame Month, about the indoctrination of children in government schools. And it's almost hard to know where to start when I put a show together. It's like, well, I know I've been thinking about this topic a lot. I want to cover this. Today, I thought we would start with this study that Colin Wright from Reality's Last Stand. He does great work. If you are not following him, you should be. I did an interview with him. You can go and look it up in the Deprogrammed archives. I've had him on a couple times actually, and he and his lady Christina Buttons, they both do great work when it comes to gender ideology. And so he shared this study in the British Journal of Developmental Psychology, where they are outright saying, in their own words, that they are studying how to better manipulate being their word, manipulate children. They're studying children ages 5 to 10 years old and figuring out how to better manipulate them and to teach children about transgender identities and reduce their belief in gender immutability. So basically, they're saying, we want to do a study on how to better brainwash kids into this ideology. We want to figure out which methods are better. And we want to confuse them, children, and get them, how can we better manipulate them into questioning reality, questioning their own sex, their own gender? How can we better manipulate them into not knowing what to trust? Up is down, down is up. Reality's not real. Biological sex isn't real. And it's a whole study about it. So we're going to look through some of the more important parts of this study. And I hope this will be a good video that you can send people to if they are questioning, what do you mean by indoctrination of kids? And, this is just one of many videos, one of many examples. I'm going to start with, let me start with this though. Hold on. Let's see. So let's start with Colin's tweets about it. Again, this is Colin Wright on Twitter, and you can follow him at Swipe Right. And this is the way he summarized it. He said, a new study explored the most effective way to brainwash children into accepting gender ideology. Researchers had kids watch either a story video of Jazz Jennings, who is said to have a quote, girl brain, but boy body, or of a marker named Blue, who has a quote, a blue inside, but a red outside. They found that, quote, a direct, realistic story was the only effective means of teaching children about transgender identities and reducing the belief in gender immutability. That's what they're trying to do, reduce their belief in gender immutability. So they want to gaslight and lie to these children. How do we do this better? Gender immutability. They want children to question that, like, can I change my sex? Can I change my gender? No, you can't. You can't. You can try and pass as the opposite sex. You can even get surgeries, which people are doing, and you can take hormones and you can try to trick other people and trick yourself. And for some people who have gender dysphoria, they have found after trying everything else, some people report it used to be before this became a trend, before they started pushing this on kids. The 0.01% of people who experience gender dysphoria used to have to go to therapy, try and root out any other potential causes, any comorbidities, any other existing mental health diagnoses, or anything that might help alleviate the gender dysphoria. And it used to be that for some of those people, like Buck Angel, I've interviewed Buck Angel. Buck Angel is a biological woman, trans man, like living as a man, trying to live and pass as a man. And, Buck talks about how he had to go through all this stuff to get to that place that they don't require kids to do anymore. They don't require anyone to do anymore. It's like, just like, oh, you say you're trans? Okay, let's get you on the hormones. Let's get you lined up for surgery. And so for some people, it used to be, though, it was like a last resort. If we can't find any other way through therapy, psychiatry, if we can't alleviate this in any other way, then the last resort is to try and live and present as the opposite sex. Well, now it's not a last resort anymore. And it's not even that it's not a last resort. If you go in and say you have gender dysphoria, it's like the first thing they do now is talk about transitioning. It's not even that. It's that they're introducing this to children who never would have grappled with this in the past. Never. Children, 99.9% of kids never had gender dysphoria. They never grappled with these things. Now in kindergarten, they're learning, oh, I guess I have to choose. Was I born in the right body or not? Am I trans or am I this new made up word cis? And cis looks so boring, by the way. There's no parades for cis, this new made up thing. There's no rainbow colored flags for cis. There's no celebration for cis. Do you think you might be creating an environment in which children have an incentive to decide that they are queer or that they are trans at a young age for the validation and approval that comes with that in their schools, in their peer groups, and sometimes even from their parents? So they outright say they're trying to figure out how to better reduce children's belief in gender immutability, sex immutability. Those words are the same. It was the feminist movement that started the feminist movement. They're the ones who started trying to separate sex and gender and say these are two separate things. It was feminist theorists who did this. I bought into all of that when I was in the woke world. Women's studies was my minor. And this whole idea that sex and gender are different things. That was one of, even when I left the woke cult, I held on to that belief for a long time. It was only very recently that I started realizing, wait, that was another just total brainwashing they did to get you to think, because the way that cults control you is by controlling the way you think. And the way they control how you think is by controlling your language, like how you think about things, how you form ideas, what words, what concepts, how you visualize things and conceptualize things. And so that was a really effective brainwashing job they did. to try and brainwash the whole world that sex and gender are different things. That was the first step to getting to this place. Because first they said, "Hey, sex and gender are different things." Then they said, "Hey, you can change your gender. Hey, don't worry, not sex. We're not saying you can change your sex. Remember, we already told you sex and gender are different things, so you can change your gender. You could be a different gender on the inside, right? And you just express that." And then now we're at this place where they're saying, "You can change your sex too." And what do they say on Twitter? "I'm not just a trans woman. I'm a woman." No, you're not. You can't change your biological sex, dude. You can't change your gender. You can change the way you present in the world. You can change your fashion and your hairstyle. You can change your body. You can get surgery. You can take hormones. You can change all of that. You can change your fashion. You can try and change the way you talk by some of them get voice lessons and stuff. You can try and change all that, but you have not changed your sex, aka your gender. I'm done pretending that these are two different things. I think you should be too. If you're awake, if you're out of the woke world, if you're awake, but you haven't questioned this yet, I would encourage you to start thinking about it and think about like, are these really two separate things? I kind of like what Billboard Chris says about it. What does he say? There's only two sexes. There are zero genders. Is that what he says? There's two sexes. That's it. If you want to use gender interchangeably for sex, fine. But there's no genders, and there's an infinite number of personalities and fashion styles and ways of presenting. Okay, so they want to reduce children's belief in gender or sex immutability. And then these are some of the parts of this that Colin has highlighted. I have the whole study pulled up, but let's just look through some of these. So here's the study. It's from the British Journal of Developmental Psychology. Transformative Tales. The role of story videos on children's reasoning about transgender identities. The current study explored whether positive contact through stories could influence how young children think about transgender identities and gender in general. A total of 174 children ages 5 through 6 and 9 through 10 were randomly assigned to one of three conditions: jazz, where participants watched a video regarding a transgender child named Jazz. If you guys don't know Jazz Jennings, by the way, you should look up Jazz Jennings. Jazz Jennings is a child who had the surgery as a child. It's funny, they always try and pretend they don't do that, but they do. There's numerous such cases. In fact, there's a lot of detransitioners who are now suing because of the surgeries that were done to them when they were children. But Jazz Jennings is a child who was on puberty blockers and then cross-sex hormones. And the puberty blockers, actually, what they did was, because they stopped puberty, the natural process of puberty, and Jazz did not go through puberty. Then when Jazz wanted to get surgery, there wasn't enough genital material down there because his penis and scrotum had not developed. And so there wasn't enough material down there to do one of these surgeries where they try and create a fake vagina. And so Jazz has had numerous complications ever since that surgery and has been open about it and is shared what all of that has been like. That's just one of the problems that can happen when you start blocking puberty, like a natural process of development. So Jazz, they assign these kids to three groups. Jazz was the group where participants watched a video regarding a transgender child named Jazz. Blue, where participants watched a video regarding a magic marker that looked red on the outside, but inside was really blue. And then the control group, where they watched no video. I would want my kids to be in the control group if they had to be in a group. Both videos describe the main character as feeling different inside than outside and their social transition to their preferred identity. Researcher scaffolding supported the video messages. Children who viewed the Jazz video had a greater understanding of transgender identities, and B, no overall differences in gender essentialism. Gender essentialism, by the way, which is the truthful fact that you cannot change your sex. That's what that is. Um, no overall differences in gender essentialism, but C, lower gender essentialism on 3 specific measures: gender immutability, innate toy behaviors, and innate preferences. Also, gender essentialism was lower in older versus younger children. In this study, a direct, realistic story was the only effective means of teaching children about transgender identities and reducing belief in gender immutability. So they're studying how to better manipulate and brainwash children in the schools through children's programming and entertainment. Thus, stories can be a way to teach children about the social world and change their essentialist beliefs, their belief in science or reality. At that age, it would just say be belief in reality. It's like a kid, a 5-year-old saying, "I'm a girl." How do you know you're a girl? Uh, you're making them question their like reality. It's evil. It is absolutely evil. Your job as an adult, one of your jobs, is to help children understand reality and to the difference between fantasy and what happens in the real world. This would be like teaching them that gravity is not real, you know? How can we better manipulate and brainwash kids to change their essentialist beliefs about gravity, their beliefs about gravity immutability? We wanna make sure they know gravity is mutable. Colin continues. These are some excerpts from the scripts of the story videos with screenshots. The stories are nearly identical except for boy and girl in Jazz's story being replaced with red and blue for Blue the marker's story. So you can see here on the left they have little cartoon drawings. That's the way they're telling Jazz's story. And they have a little script here for the video. I am Jazz. For as long as I can remember, my favorite color has been pink. My second favorite color is silver, and my third favorite color is green. I have a girl brain, but a boy body. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a girl brain and a boy body. There's no such thing. You have a boy brain and a boy body. You are a boy. This isn't science. This isn't scientific. If here's something to ask the cult members who just repeat nonsense at you, who don't know anything about anything but just repeat their tribal cult nonsense. If there were such a thing as a girl brain, could why don't we just test for it? Why don't we just see which kids are trans by doing a test? We just see like, oh, there's a girl brain in there. We didn't. Oh, okay. It's a pink one. It's pink. We measured it. It's the girl brain. Somehow it got in this boy body, but it's really clearly a girl brain. Super scientific guy. Come on, we're doing sciencey things. So they're teaching kids this. They're indoctrinating children that it's possible. And I've met young adults now who believe this nonsense. I'm sure you have too. You're like, where did this come from? Where did this is this is crazier than flat earth. This is the flat earth's pretty crazy. This is take whatever craziest conspiracy theory you could think of. Some of the Q stuff, for example. This is crazier to me. It should be to you. Oh, there's a girl brain in there. Let's and they're teaching kids this. It would be like teaching them flat earth or there's no gravity. That little paragraph there ends. I was born this way with a girl brain and a boy body. What does that mean? No, you're a boy. Your brain is a boy's brain. Okay. Next slide. And it's a kid. The kid is playing with toys and saying, "No, mama, good girl." When I was very little, my mom would say, "You're such a good boy." And I would say, "No, mama, good girl." At first, my family was confused. They had always thought of me as a boy because you are a boy. Next slide. There's a little drawing of a bathroom sign and a soccer ball, and it says boys soccer. Quote, I was so happy when the teachers changed their minds. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. So they're not just teaching them things that are anti-science, which is that you can be born with you can sex brains and decide this is it's a female brain in the boy body. But they're also teaching them activism here. They're giving them ideological beliefs, and they're telling them that boys should be allowed in girls' bathrooms. Otherwise, you're going to hurt little Jazz there. Men should be allowed in women's rooms. Otherwise, Jazz's feelings are going to be hurt. They're teaching this to children. They're indoctrinating. They're brainwashing kids. I was so happy when the teachers changed their minds. I can't imagine not playing on the same team as Casey and Samantha. Oh, they're giving them a belief that men should be able to compete in women's sports as long as they say they're women. Quote, even today, there are kids who tease me or call me a boy name or ignore me altogether. This makes me feel crummy. Then I remember that the kids who get to know me usually want to be my friend, and they say I'm one of the nicest girls at school. So it's emotional manipulation. That's what they're using. The videos were stopped periodically, Colin continues, to ask the children 3 questions about the video they were watching. Here are the questions they asked the kids. What is different about Jazz or Blue? Why is Jazz or Blue sad? Why is Jazz or Blue happy? Regardless of the child's responses, the researchers responded with set answers. I don't know if I can make this larger. Let's see. So, for example, why is Jazz sad? And they have something here where the kid says it has to do with what others do or think. And so then the researcher would say, because no one will let her be a girl, like try and explain it further. Or every time they play in the gym, she has to be on the boys' team, but she's a girl. Or the researcher would say, because people say she's a boy and make fun of her. Or the researcher would say, because he's transgender, but the teachers don't know this. Because he has a boy's body, because she's a girl. So it didn't matter. It didn't matter what they said. They would respond with these set answers. The researchers acknowledged that their, quote, findings were generally modest, end quote, but claimed that a more powerful, this is their words, in quotes, quote, a more powerful manipulation, their word, such as a longer story and repeated readings of the story, especially by someone familiar to the child, may show stronger effects. Does this remind you guys of years ago on my old channel? One of the we reread 1984. A lot of people had already read it in school years ago. It's a lot different reading it as an adult. We read George Orwell's 1984. We also read Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. It's Brave New World I'm thinking of here. Does it remind you of when they put all the kids in the gym, or that big sleeping arrangement they have them all in, and they have the hypnopedia, they have the little voice in their ear all night long that's programming them and brainwashing them while they sleep? Do you remember that? This is how they brainwash kids in Brave New World. Brave New World is, some people have described the two, those books go pretty hand in hand. Brave New World being what does an authoritarian, totalitarian, dystopian future look like if it's run by leftists? That's the way that one's described sometimes. Whereas the other one, people have described it as if it's run by people on the right. But now I think it's just sort of, I think both of these are pretty good examples of totalitarian, authoritarian dystopia if run by the left. I'm not saying the right couldn't be in charge of one either. Absolutely they could, and history has shown us they can. But I also think 1984, it's like we're starting to see all this stuff from leftists that you I it's changed what I thought people on the left were capable of, I guess. They're capable of almost any kind of evil. They're capable of outright fascism while accusing others of being fascists, and not even most of the ones who use that word don't even know what it means. They've never looked it up. They just say, again, they just get their marching orders. They just get told, repeat this, say this mantra. They've never read those books, by the way. I know when Trump was elected, there were articles about how a lot of people on the left went and bought 1984, but I don't think they read it. I really don't. Anyway, this sort of, you know, the way that they're talking about repeated readings of the story, we need a more powerful manipulation for kids. We need to repeatedly read the story to them. It may show stronger effects. It's so much like Brave New World, where they were repeating the same things over and over to them at night while they were sleeping. But hey, something Huxley got wrong in this Brave New World. You don't even have to do it while they're sleeping. You can do it right out in the sunlight. You can do it in the classroom. You can get away with it doing it in the classroom and having the government support that. I'm going to read this whole excerpt here. So, to summarize the key results, this study revealed that stories can be a way to teach children about the social world and change their essentialist beliefs, but the impact may be limited and greatly affected by features of the story. At the same time, although overall the findings were generally modest, we believe they are nonetheless promising, given that the manipulation was only 3.5 minutes in length. I mean, they just say what it is. I'm shocked they're using the real word. I'm shocked they didn't come up with something. You know how instead of saying castration or mastectomy, they say gender affirming care, or they don't say sterilization, they say gender affirming care. I mean, it's very Orwellian. They rename everything, right? I'm shocked they didn't come up with a new word instead of manipulation. They just use the real word. Okay. We believe they are nonetheless promising, given that the manipulation was only 3.5 minutes in length. A more powerful manipulation may show stronger effects. Potential ways of strengthening the manipulation could include, for example, a longer story, repeated readings of the story, having the story read in person by a familiar person rather than a stranger on video, more interactive discussions with a parent or other adult, and or studying older children who may be less rigid in their gender beliefs. This is like cult training. How to brainwash and manipulate. First of all, break down children, break them down psychologically, and then recreate them in the image you want. Recreate them psychologically. This is cult programming. This is cult brainwashing. That's what woke is. It's a cult. But at least when I got my programming, I was an adult. In some sense, it was my own fault. These are kids. I can't even imagine where I would be now if this programming had happened to me in kindergarten. Like if it had started in kindergarten or elementary school like it does for a lot of kids today. I don't know if I ever would have gotten out of it. I don't know if I'd be alive, honestly. I went through a really dark period, a really personally just, the dark night of the soul of when I was leaving woke, of just like who was I? What did I believe? What had I allowed myself to become? All of this, the psychological damage of that they are doing to these children, of programming kids at this young and vulnerable age, programming them into a political ideology, and not just any political ideology, but an ideology that is anti-family, anti-science, anti-reality, anti-culture. I mean, it's anti-flourishing. It's anti-mental health. It's healthiness. Like, how do you survive this? These kids are gonna be so messed up. At a young age, you were programmed by the government, the government schools, your parents, social media, all the whole culture at large told you lies and filled you with lies about the very nature of the world, about the very nature of your sex, of reality. You were gaslit from the age of 5 or younger. It's just it's sometimes overwhelming what they're doing. I'm gonna continue reading this. So they say, "We now turn to potential future directions with this research. If our interpretation above about how the stories influenced and did not influence essentialism components is supported, a different story that does not highlight mutability at the expense of reinforcing beliefs about gender stereotypical behavior may be more successful at reducing gender essentialism more broadly. Since the publication of I Am Jazz and Red, A Crayon Story, more children's books have been published that address gender diversity, and other non-binary, and non-conforming identities. It is possible. There's no such thing as a non-conforming identity, by the way. Again, this religion, this cult is based around identity and power. Those are the two very essential things they care about: identity and power. So they try to make everything into an identity, like a non-conforming identity. So let's say you're a little girl who likes to play with toy trucks instead of dolls. That's not your identity. That's just a preference of what you like to play with, which is fine. That's not your it's not, "Oh, that's who I am." They wanna make all this part of who you are. Non-conforming identities. It is possible that some of these stories may be more effective at reducing gender essentialism in children through indirect contact with different gender identities. This is why they want Drag Queen Story Hour. Indirect contact with different gender identities. That's why one reason they want Drag Queen Story Hour. You never see drag queens going to the nursing homes and doing Drag Queen Nursing Home Hour where they read stories there, no? You never see other story hours. If it's about they try and sell it like, "Oh, it's about teaching kids about diversity. That's why we need this in schools and libraries." Okay, well, it's not very diverse. It's just drag queens. It's just drag queens. Where's the fireman story hour? Where's the construction worker story hour? Where's the nurse story hour? The doctor story hour? The oh, it's just drag queens? It's kind of odd. It's kind of odd, but it's about hmm. They need to learn about different kinds of people and different okay, where are all the different kinds of people? Well, it's just drag queens. They need to learn about drag queens. Oh, okay. I will refer you back here. At this point, I'm gonna take just a second and say, if you're new to this channel, welcome. If you found me because you hate my posts on social media during Pride Month, the month of shame, welcome. And I will refer you to Kitty Demure, who I've mentioned before, who's a drag queen who just lambasts this idea that children need to be exposed to drag. Drag is for adults. Go and check out Kitty. If you're here from the cult to hate, I know that you don't actually have any diversity in your life. Oh, people might look different, but they don't have there's no diversity of opinions around you. You don't know any drag queens who disagree with Drag Queen Story Hour, do you? You don't know any gay people who disagree with Pride, do you? You don't know any trans people, people with gender dysphoria who disagree with Pride, who disagree with pushing this on children, doing books about gender identity for kids, do you? You live a very sheltered cult life. Welcome to the real world. Welcome to my channel. You're still welcome here if you came to hate. I'm serious. It's fine. Just try and be civil in the chat. Um, okay. So this is where they say, yeah, that we need to expose them. We need to expose children through indirect contact with different gender identities, exposing children to other gender identities such as gender fluid or non-binary identities. You're teaching them nonsense and you're indoctrinated them with your religion and with your morality at a young age, and you're doing it through the government school system. That's authoritarianism. You're using this government school to push your religion on these kids. Have you asked the kids, parents, if they want their children learning about polyamory and gender fluidity and all this other degenerate nonsense that you want to pump their heads full of? Have you asked their parents? Exposing children to other gender identities, such as gender fluid and non-binary identities, may better illustrate counterexamples to essentialist beliefs as well. It's like going and telling children, like, here, choose from all these mental disorders. Which would you like? The more exposure children have to people with varying, diverse identities, right? But not opinions. They may claim to be all these different things, but they all have the same opinion, like the Borg, right? More exposure children have to people with varying, diverse identities, but with the same opinion, the more expansive their understanding of gender may become, thus potentially reducing their gender essentialism. Again, this is all about reducing children's belief in fact, biological reality. How do we do that? Developing stories that highlight components or aspects of identities that better challenge essentialist notions and introduce anti-essentialist beliefs related to more components may lead to more significant findings in essentialist reduction. In future research, it would also be valuable to include a story of a child with a girl's body who feels like a boy. Given asymmetries and in gender attitudes and essentialism, let me just stop here for a second. Gender dysphoria, just to remind everyone, because we're in this crazy place right now, gender dysphoria has always been in the DSM. It is a mental disorder. It's always been treated as a mental disorder until very, very recently, like in the past 5 years. It's a mental disorder. It's most, I think it's if you know what body dysmorphia is what they say is like the underlying cause behind things like anorexia or bulimia. Body dysmorphia is when you look at yourself in the mirror and you see something different than reality. Okay, so you say, even though you're skinny and you're starving yourself to death, you say, I'm so fat, I'm so fat, I'm just so fat. Now, imagine if one day there were a political movement that started pushing this ideology that it's normal to have body dysmorphia, that it's normal. And in fact, we need to let kids know. So, and we need to let kids know not to discriminate against and bully people with body dysmorphia. So in order to do that, we can't just teach them don't bully people, which seems like that would be the easiest thing is, hey, don't bully anyone. But no, we have to go into the schools and we have to teach them about body dysmorphia. We have to teach kids about body dysmorphia. And then we have to ask them, now, are you fat on the inside but skinny on the outside? You might be fat on the inside. Are you really, really obese? Because if you are, we're going to help you lose more weight and we're going to give you surgeries and stomach binding. And I know you look skinny on the outside, but you're not really. Like that's that's the equivalent of what they're doing. They're making children mentally ill. This video may get taken down by YouTube. I just realized. Used to be we couldn't say this stuff on the oldie YouTube. I am simulcasting on Rumble, so if it gets pulled down here, at least it'll be go and find me, Keri Smith, Deprogrammed on Rumble. But that's what it would be like, Hey, we've got to put it in all the schools. And then what else do they do to make this palatable for children? Palatable, sorry. They go and they make these cartoon characters like the gingerbread man, and the gender unicorn. Imagine if they did that for anorexia and bulimia, like body dysmorphia, like, hey kids, We're gonna teach you about anorexia, and you need to figure out if you have it or not. By the way, if you have it, it's super cool. We're gonna give you your own flags. That's your identity now. There's gonna be a parade. We're gonna have a whole month where we celebrate your body dysmorphia. You don't wanna be a normal person, kids. You gotta figure out if you're, body dysmorphic or not. And if you are body dysmorphic, we're gonna celebrate it. That's what they're doing. That's what this is. "Hey, kids, you gotta figure out if you're born in the wrong body or not. We got a name for it. We got a word for it. It's called trans. Are you a trans kid? Or are you a square cis?" They came up with a straight pride flag. They did. Straight people didn't. Well, straight people who are in the woke cult, probably. The woke came up with a straight pride flag. Have you guys seen this? I wanna show you this because, let's see. Now, kids, you've got you've got a option. You can be mentally disordered and born in the wrong body. Or you can be cis and straight. Look at this. It's gray and white. It's gray and white and black. It's just, boring living life without color there. Hey, kids. Do you wanna be a square? This is what we're giving you. This is your future. So I have to laugh at it because it's so manipulative. It's so manipulative. But then on the other hand, if you're gay, if you identify as queer, trans kid, right? It's just parades and unicorns and skittle and rainbow flag from the sky. Oh my goodness. Prison bars. Holocron says, "Prison bars, yay." It does look like a prison, right? Here's your straight cis flag. Andrew Joyner, thank you for the super chat. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed. Andrew gives £5. I appreciate it and says, "Get them while they're young." I say, "Get them while they're young." Identity politics for 5-year-olds. What could go wrong? Exactly. You guys have heard these quotes before, I'm sure, about how if you want to thoroughly brainwash a person, you need to get them when they're children, around ages 4 or 5. I'm just gonna finish up this paragraph here. So, given asymmetries in gender attitudes and essentialism when reasoning about boys or men versus girls or women, these cases may be treated differently by children. It would also be informative to determine what role, if any, the experimenter's scaffolding of the story played in children's understanding. I think I had one more. I think there was one more here from Colin. Oh, okay. So it's the link to the full study here, which I'll put below the video. They are literally testing, he says, they are literally testing how to most effectively indoctrinate young children into the gender cult. Don't be surprised if we see these tactics implemented in public schools. This paper was published in the British Journal of Developmental Psychology, but we've already seen these tactics in schools. I mean, the books are already out there. They basically took these books that are on the market and were like, which one's better at brainwashing? Oh, it's the jazz one rather than the magic marker one. And then they even brag at the end. There's a lot more books now targeting kids that we can choose from in our next studies. And people are bringing, woke teachers are bringing this into the classroom. Here's the link to the full paper. It's called Transformative Tales, the Role of Story Videos on Children's Reasoning About Transgender Identities. And it's in the British Journal of Developmental Psychology. If one of the mods could drop that in the chat, that would be great. Actually, wait, I've got it right here. I've got it in the chat. And I'll edit the video to put it below so you guys can go read the whole thing. RB says about the straight pride flag, and not only does it look like prison bars, but RB noticed, holy shit, and the 2 rings look like handcuffs. Yeah, they do. Do you want to be handcuffed to your straight cis identity? Think about children seeing all this imagery. Like this is on purpose. I've got something else I wanted to show you that's related. So this was the main topic, but I saw a couple things today. Actually, the Christian panel, which we're going to be back on Wednesday. I don't know the topic yet, but I'll let you guys know. And we have a group chat going, and they were posting stuff that was just related to what I was going to talk about today. So I'm like, you know what? I can't help but I have to show this. We may cover it again on the Christian panel, but let me pull this up. So if you are familiar with queer theory, none of this is going to come as a shock to you, because queer theory's explicit stated goals are that they want to destroy anything that's considered a societal norm, anything that's traditional, including the nuclear family. It's all about tearing down everything and destroying everything. Tearing down your children, tearing down your children's concept of reality, tearing down their basic understanding of reality. But if you're not familiar with queer theory, this may be shocking to you. This is a abolish the family advocate named Dr. Sophie Lewis, who's explaining that the desire to protect children's sexual innocence is a moral panic, and that the true threat to children is the nuclear family. Again, everything, these are like, this is like Satan's work out in the world. If you're a believer, you'll understand what I mean. Up is down, down is up, good is bad, bad is good. It's like the way Satan reverses everything and can only destroy, cannot create. And so what are they saying? Oh, it's the nuclear family is a threat to children. But you know what? Sexualizing kids, that's not a threat. That's cool. Queer theory also says queer theory is this is where all the ideas come from for what we're seeing in the classroom now. The stuff we just talked about with kids, teaching them about gender ideology and all that stuff. It all comes from queer theory. And so one of the things queer theory says is that we need to get rid of the age of consent. That we need to treat kids like kids are an oppressed group, right? And that we need to treat them like adults. They should be able to consent to sex with adults. That's what queer theorists believe. If you think it's not going to go there soon, it is. Let's listen to her. This is abolish the family advocate, Dr. Sophie Lewis.
The fear that comes with the suggestion of sort of sexual threat to children, the weaponization of the sexual innocence of the child, is something that back then in the early 80s and still today, we do not have a brave, united kind of left response to, right? So when someone gets called a groomer in this weaponized, organized way, the template for which was laid by Anita Bryant in the 80s and the sort of Reaganite campaign of organized homophobia and sort of, Christian evangelical capitalism on steroids, well, we lose an enormous amount.
By the way, did you just hear her rattle off all of the enemies of this religion right there? Woke religion, woke social justice, identity Marxist religion. It has roots in Marxism. I mean, it's basically Marxism, but it's about identity and power instead of about class and wealth. Did you just hear her list off all the enemies of the woke religion? I mean, you already know what a lot of them are anyway. But Christianity, capitalism,
Christian evangelical campaign of organized homophobia and sort of, Christian evangelical capitalism on steroids, yeah, well, we lose an enormous amount of movement memory about where the location of sexual violence actually is in the world, right? And in the fabric of capitalist social reproduction.
Capitalist social reproduction. Hey, wait.
Right, and in the fabric of capitalist social reproduction.
Capitalist social reproduction.
Where the threat to children actually is the private patriarchal nuclear household, right?
There's the enemies again. The nuclear family's the enemy, the patriarchy, privacy for your family, all of these are the enemies.
And when we sort of capitulate to the sorts of moves that make a kind of threat and a social terror out of the figure of the queer person, we throw out this enormous and indispensable component of utopian wisdom.
Utopian wisdom. Some of the people on the left who are in this cult, but they don't know they're in this cult, like the ones who are kind of like cluelessly in it, they've picked it up through osmosis, right? They will harp on different things I say. I did a post today where I was talking about how this cult believes in racism and sexism. Until we reach utopia, we have to do racism and sexism. And they'll pick apart little things like, what are you talking about, utopia? We don't believe in a utopia. You do. You don't realize you do, but she just said it. I mean, you do. You're in this belief system. You don't, like a fish who doesn't see the water around you. You don't even know where this came from, your beliefs. You don't know where any of it came from. A lot of you. The ones who are the activists who are pushing, a lot of them have read the theory. They know what they're pushing. I'm sure she's read the theory. She knows what she's pushing. Holocron, Library Fox, utopian, things that don't actually work. Wisdom, things that work based on experience and knowledge. I like that. John West, thank you for supporting the channel. Thanks for supporting Deprogrammed with $5. I appreciate it. Okay, I wanted to show you something else I saw. This is great. So I saw this meme. I think this is a good one to share right now. I reposted on my X, my Twitter, if you want to grab it. I also put it up on Facebook. I'll put it in the why don't I just go ahead and put it in the YouTube community page today too, so you can grab it there. I'm trying to see who made this. Let's see. Who made this meme? Narrow Road Comics. And it's about, the 10 Commandments is in the news. They're trying to get everybody distracted with like, should the 10 Commandments be in the schools or not? And this is just it's a great comic about the state of things right now. And there's Moses there with the tablets of the 10 Commandments, and he is at a government school administrator's office, and looks to be a black female lesbian, not a male lesbian. Okay. It's a black lesbian, and she's sitting there working on behalf of the government, the school. And she says, government can't impose morality. And then behind her, you can see the American flag, and you can also see all of these stickers, and there's everything there at the school. There's a female and male restroom sign, one of those like non-binary, like I'm a man and a woman signs. There's the new equality progress flag, which is basically the communist flag there with a triangle coming in on the side of it. There's a big Black Lives Matter sign, stop hate crimes, gun-free zone, trans rights are human rights, right? There's bring back Roe v. Wade. And then there's the little HRC symbol there, that equality sign. That's the Human Rights Campaign, which is one of the largest political gay organizations. So it's making a great point that they don't have a problem with religion or morality in schools. They don't have a problem with it at all. It's just a matter of which religion, which morality is allowed in schools. And currently It's the woke religion. It's woke ideology. Woke ideology, which includes underneath it, you have queer theory, you have feminist theory, you have CRT, critical race theory, you have all of these different identity theories under it. That religion's allowed in schools. That morality is allowed in schools. They're teaching kids. It's anti-science. I mean, this religion is in schools and they're using it to teach kids that there's no such thing as biological sex, that they can change their sex, that there are no physical differences between men and women. Um, that men should be able to compete in women's sports. If they say they're women, it's fine. No differences in physicality or strength. They're teaching them that racism against white people doesn't exist. It's impossible. But it's just prejudice because they've redefined racism for us now. So it's just prejudice, and it should be allowed. It's a good thing. It should be allowed against white people because white people are the oppressors and they're the privileged. And in this religion, it's okay to be prejudiced towards them. We have to do it. Actually, it's a moral imperative to do it. And that we should allow legal discrimination against Asian people and white people and men, discrimination against men. We should allow that legally. We have to. That it's a moral imperative to do that until we reach equity. Equity being their utopia, right? We have to allow this. This is what they're teaching kids. This is what woke religion teaches kids. I've talked to numerous parents starting years ago when I started my first show, parents who were saying, I don't know what to tell my kids. Like my kids are coming home from school and they're asking me like, why are white people bad? Like this is how it gets reduced down to a child's version of what they're being taught. Why are men bad? It's a religion. It's a morality. It's a messed up morality. It's a messed up religion, but it's in the schools. If you have kids in government schools, get them out. It's a little indoctrination factory. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that too. I think this is going to be kind of a short one today. I had a lot of stuff pulled up, but they're doing construction right outside this window again. It's a little louder today than it was on Friday. So I don't know if you can hear it, but it's a little distracting to me. And I think I've covered the main part, which is that study that I really wanted to cover. Go and subscribe to Colin Wright. Go and read his Substack, Reality's Last Stand. And if you know someone on the left who you think you could get away with sending this video to, please send it to them. And see what happens. And hello, left. If you were given this video, you're welcome here. I promise you. It may sound like we have some harsh words. It's not for you as a person. It's for your belief system. We have harsh words for your belief system. Okay. If you guys have any questions or anything you need me to cover before I go, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to wrap this one up. This will just be like a short hour-long one. Yes, Andrew Joyner. He says, I remember James Lindsay talking about how they believe the hierarchical relationship between the parent and child is oppressive. They do. They do. And they say this explicitly. And hold on one second. I just want to grab this book. I can't find it. I must have taken it upstairs. The book I was going to show you is one of the last books we read for book club, which is Queering the American Child. It's by Logan Lansing and James Lindsay. It's a great book. It's specifically just about the queer theory part, the gender ideology part of social justice ideology, of woke ideology, and what's happening in the classroom. It's a great resource. If you haven't read it, you need to go get a copy of that book. I'm sorry I couldn't find it, or I would just show you the cover of it, but it's called Queering the American Child. And you should go grab it. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up for today. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. I hope I'll see you in book club. It's July 18th, and we're reading the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. So go grab a copy of it and hope to see you there. Take care. See you on Wednesday. Bye.